Hello, and welcome back to another episode of To Whom It May Concern. I'm your host, Malak, here with my co-hosts, Khawaila, Inara, and Maria.
Hey,
Hey, everyone.
So, in recent news, we've had a unique Olympics this year. So, there's actually been a whole bunch of news going around about withdrawals, about competitors not competing. And I just feel like it's really been kind of chaotic. Like the Olympics itself, which is kind of funny because it matches the year we've been coming out of for COVID. But the energy of the Olympics has kind of been all over the place. And one of the main points for the US team, at least, is Simone Biles withdrawing from her competitions. So for everyone that doesn't know her, she's a big time gymnast. She's usually always ranking top, right? Golds are not foreign to her. And unfortunately, this year she had to withdraw. Now, a lot of the news going around is not saying it was due to anything physical, but more of her brain and her physical body not being in tune. So it was kind of more of her mental health and a lot of stress. And although she wasn't physically injured, she still felt the need to have to withdraw. And a lot of people are kind of feeling let down. The Team USA is feeling let down. And the country is kind of on both ends of the spectrum, arguing on whether she made the right decision or not.
Especially, we didn't win gold this year, and we have been winning gold in women's gymnastics. So this year, it's like an MVP withdrawing themselves right before the championship game.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody going, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Why?
One of the gymnasts on Team USA had won a gold medal, but it wasn't for the same thing. Like, we're still able to bring it. And I think we placed overall because she had pulled out, like, we received the silver medal instead of the usual victories that we're used to. So what do you guys think? Do you think she could have kind of like stuck it out? I mean, this is the Olympics. It happens once every 4 years. Like, how do you guys feel?
Well, she pulled out because she thought if she continued, she would have done more harm to the team. So if you look at it, they might have not even earned a silver if she did continue to play. So that's something to consider. So was she being a team player because she was like, listen, I'm not in my good mental state. And if I did continue, I might actually make us lose a silver. Therefore, I'm going to step aside and let you guys do your work because you guys work really hard for this.
It's very interesting because the distinction between physical health and mental health is that physical health, it's more objective in a way that everyone's able to assess it. If I fall and break my ankle, like everyone's able to see I can't physically walk on it, versus mental health is more subjective in people having to just believe your word that I'm overwhelmed to the point where I can't take it or I can't compete. So that's why it's very hard for people to understand mental health, especially for people who don't go through it or don't have this like similar issues. Or also, if you do have issues, you can deal with it in a different way, or it's to varying degrees. So some people might suffer from anxiety, but others it's more debilitating than for any other person. So it's interesting in that aspect, but it's hard in a sense because you feel like a lot of people go through anxiety, especially coming up to competitions, like especially of this sort, like of this magnitude, the Olympics. And it's understandable with all the pressure that she was going under for her to want to withdraw from the competition.
And I think it just shocked a lot of people because she was known as, oh, she's going to be the greatest gymnast of all time. Like they put so many labels on her, I guess you could say, about being the greatest, being the best, performing, 2 moves that weren't even created yet. She was going to perform them. So putting all this pressure. And also, in my personal opinion, if she felt like she couldn't do it and it was going to hurt her, for example, if she couldn't perform on uneven bars and she falls and breaks her back, just a half a second of hesitation can be the difference between you grabbing on the bar and not.
Yeah.
So in the long run, is it good for her? I think so. Was it best for the team? Who knows? But was it good for her? Yes. If she thought she wasn't going to be able to stick the landings or pick up the bars or hurt herself, I would rather her not break her neck and not her break her back. Like, it's not worth it at the end of the day, especially because she's still so young.
Yeah. For me, it's fine that she took a step back and was like, hey, like, I can't do this because of my mental health right now, right? For like her safety and for her own health. Yes, you should sit down and like take your break before you kill yourself. So, but my issue is like, why do people have to be like, kind of making her sound like, wow, she's so brave or such a hero, like kind of like praising that. And for me, it's like, yes, she should, like, it doesn't make her amazing for sitting down, it just makes her like, you were not feeling well, you could sit down, but it doesn't make you brave. Brave would make you like stick it through, So for me, it's like bravery started being like redefined as somebody who like speaks up for themselves, but it's like, usually we define bravery as somebody who kind of will risk themselves for their team or for the greater good. But now it's like, it's all about you. So for, like, she's just being a normal human being who just needed a break. Why do we have to pray?
I will say it's brave, though. If you have the whole United States going, we can't see your injury, tough it out. What do you mean you can't perform and get us a gold? Because the Olympics is a huge thing. To be able to say, you know what? No, I'm not going to do it no matter what all of you guys say. I need to be safe. I need to prioritize myself. Regardless.
I would say she's courageous, but I wouldn't say she's brave.
Aren't they synonyms?
No, it's different.
I do. I feel like a lot of things are being shifted towards individualism and only caring for yourself. I do agree with that. And that's why a lot of people praise, like, oh my God, she was willing to just care for herself. And that's why you do need a good balance between caring for yourself, but also being selfless and caring for others. And I guess my whole thing is that it's not a big deal because the Olympic Games is just a show for everyone anyways. It's purely entertainment. So like whether she's in the competition or not, it's who cares? Because what is the benefit? You win a gold medal. Okay, sure. You get recognition. If anything, that this recognition is putting more pressure and harm for her own self.
Well, there is kind of like political aspects to this. The Olympics aren't just purely this neutral, beautiful thing. People compete and bring pride to their nation for winning on their behalf. So it's not nothing.
No, people need to calm down. It's literally
people do need to calm down. I'm sorry. Personally, if I was that Olympian and I thought I was going to break my back and for a gold medal or just have everybody disappointed in me, guess which one I'll take.
Yeah. But like, I agree with Hinata in the sense where bravery is when you put someone, like there's a burning building and like the firemen and firewomen are going in and saving the people, putting themselves at risk. That's what bravery is. Like a team, like you're nervous, you're scared about something, but you're willing to push through that to help others.
Do you think because she's a woman, people have more empathy for her? Because if we compare this to like the NBA, finals, Game 7, and LeBron says, "Sorry guys, I need a mental health break. I can't handle this."
Oh,
but also
the same, good job, LeBron. You're so brave.
There's such a difference.
There's double standards.
No, there's a difference in those sports. I'm sorry. There's a massive difference between throwing yourself up in the air and not being able to stick it and breaking all of your limbs, which a lot of gymnasts before have permanently disabled themselves by performing when they aren't mentally there, because it is such a mental sport as well as a physical sport. It is not the same as basketball, okay? You maybe will get like a torn ACL, you'll break your leg max. So. Like, you're not going to kill yourself, essentially.
So you really think people would have empathy for a dude that says, I need a mental health break? Like, they'll be like, he's so brave.
No, I definitely don't think that.
Well, I think the factor of the sport itself gives me at least empathy for her. Like if a male gymnast were to do the same thing, I would have the same empathy.
You think so?
How about a female basketball player who's like, I can't handle this? Like, let's say a LeBron woman, right, in the WNBA decides to do this. Would women
basketball,
have
I'd be like, okay, get yourself together and get back in there, okay? Because
why though? It's still like
you are hurting your team too, though. If you're not able to shoot your shots for some reason, you are hurting your team.
So you think it should be based on how dangerous the sport is?
I think in this situation, yeah, the dangerousness of her sport should be considered.
My only question is that usually people with anxiety, like they have episodes or they go through it prior to. So I wonder if she herself had an episode from before where she was feeling like unsure when she was practicing these moves, or she was feeling a lot of pressure where she was already anxious versus like, I don't know, can you suddenly just be super anxious over something you've done?
No, yes. There's two different things. You can have generalized anxiety disorder where you're feeling anxious throughout, or you can have panic attacks where you just have that one attack. You feel very like severe anxiety and you have a whole bunch of symptoms that come with that. So there's two different things where you can feeling anxious throughout, or you just have an attack that lasts for minutes to hours and then it goes away.
I mean, honestly, if she felt, I don't feel like her in particular is the type of gymnast that if it wasn't really severe, she would just back out. Like, I feel like she's a real, like, gun-ho gold medalist. Like, I can't imagine everything that she had to go through or all the thoughts she had to go through in order for her to be able to say, okay, I absolutely cannot compete and I'm going to have to pull out of Team USA. You know, like, it's a lot going on. And she knows how important and how vital she is to the country's team. So I feel like I'm empathetic towards her just because I'm like, it must have been really bad for her to have to say, I'm going to pull out. But also, the article I was reading was saying, like, that her numbers prior to her pulling back were, like, some of her lowest numbers, some of her lowest competing numbers. So I'm not going to lie. For a second, I also thought, like, maybe she pulled out to save her own face, like, so that she didn't continue to get low numbers or something. But I also don't know if she was being affected by her anxiety prior to, and she tried to stick it out, and that was the result of it.
Or do you
there's a lot going on.
Or do you think it comes to a point where you're such a perfectionist, like, that you're always used to doing well, that anything less than, you just quit?
That could be a part of her anxiety too, a part of that pressure, or even from her coaches and herself. She's being too hard on herself, maybe. I don't know.
Another factor that I was thinking about was the fact that when you start something, usually everyone's encouraging you to finish it. When it comes to sports, especially, like, you joined a team, regardless of how you're performing, if you start the game, finish the game. And a lot of people were praising her for quitting halfway, even though a lot of kids growing up can look up to that and be like, oh, so I don't have to finish the game. Oh, so it's okay. I can just take it back and not complete what I've done. Mm-hmm. And an issue with that is that, yeah, I agree with you, Malak. She might have had severe debilitating anxiety or whatever was going on with her. But a lot of times people say that they have anxiety when if they do, it's not to the point where it's actual, like, medically, like, diagnosed, if you know what I mean.
Well, that's one of the hardest parts about mental health is that you can't quantify it. So somebody can, even people that generally just have really basic anxiety, sometimes it kicks up really badly. And then now it's debilitating at that moment, but typically it's not debilitating. So also you look at someone and you're like, how bad is it? Like,
no, not just that. I feel like people take it so lightly to the fact where they're like, oh, it's just normal nerves. I have anxiety. Oh, I'm shy. So if I talk to someone new, oh my God, I can't handle it. You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree.
People just throw these terms out so loosely and so easily that it's like, oh, I'm getting nervous showing up to a game or a performance, that I'm just gonna, like, I looked up to her, she quit halfway, even though what she's going through is an actual condition, actual mental disorder. Even though I don't have that, it's so loosely thrown around that I can just be encouraged to just stop right where I am.
Yeah, it's definitely been used as a scapegoat. Like, today, mental health has definitely been used as a scapegoat. Not to say that we shouldn't pay more attention to it. Or in the years that have come, we've certainly looked into mental health a lot more and how it's affecting people, which was very much needed. But I do agree, Khola. I feel like sometimes the typical nerves or the, like, pre-game excitement or going on stage nerves, like, those are all normal things to experience. And sometimes people have those feelings and they allow it to hinder them from actually doing activities when in reality it's not as bad as they may think it is. But it's easier to kind of just say, oh my God, I'm so anxious. Oh my God, I'm having a panic attack, when in reality it's kind of like just normal nerves, which is normal. And I remember doing in undergrad, I had to do a presentation on that, kind of just debilitating anxiety versus just simply being anxious. Because it's normal to be anxious as students, as teenagers growing up, as adults, like, especially COVID, people were faced with so many new anxieties, so many new triggers. So it's normal to be anxious about something, but it's also important to realize how debilitating your anxiety actually is versus maybe just some practical ways to deal with jitters and small scale anxiety attacks that you can kind of just pick yourself off, dust yourself, and keep moving, you know? Mm-hmm. But this conversation actually goes back to a conversation that people have had for years now. But it's just that whole scale of mental health and physical health. Like even people that feel it necessary to take mental health days off versus calling in and saying you're actually vomiting or you need to go to the hospital or whatnot. So do you guys believe those are equally as important also? Like, do you think it should be normalized to call your boss and say, oh, I'm not mentally prepared for today, I need to take off?
For sure, I'm for mental health breaks, but just because you're not in it. So here's my thing. Like, I feel like there's a difference between like, listen, I really can't do this. Like where it's like very debilitating, where I really need a break. Like I'm burnt out. I've been working really hard and I just like need a breather. And maybe there's a lot of other factors going into my life right now. Like there's just so many stressors that I need this break even from work. Like I get that. But just because you don't feel like it, like you're not in the mood, I feel like that's not really excusable.
You know? But how can I quantify your necessary need for mental health versus somebody else's? Like, is it just of like...
First of all, a lot of jobs have sick days off where you only have a certain amount of days you could take off, regardless if it's physical or if it's mental health.
Yeah.
Just stating it out there. Second of all, I'm sorry. If as a person who had an anxiety before, like an anxiety attack, knowing that you can't control it, and it does overwhelm you and you physically can't even do the work. So what's the point of you going into work and not being able to do the job anyway?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I think a lot of people are very critical of when people say mental health or anxiety or whatever, because they're so easy to say, oh, they're just faking it, or, oh, they just don't want to be here. I think maybe we should give a little trust back to those people.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, you like you were saying, how do we quantify it? I was like this, you trust the person. Like if they say they can't because they need a mental break, you trust them. Because when I say I'm sick, like how sick? Do you just have a headache? So we don't say that. Like, do I have to be in the hospital for me to call off? So I feel like you just need to trust the person. If they say, hey, mentally I can't come in, you have to trust it. Like you can't be like, well, tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it? So you just trust the person. Like how we trust the person when they say they're physically ill. You trust them when they say they're mentally, I need a break.
I think it also depends though. Like someone that has anxiety and depression, like let's say if it's depression and it's going to be for a longer amount of time, then it's like, okay, how long is this break going to be? Because if I'm sick, let's say it lasts usually 1 to 5 days max. Usually you perk up and get better pretty quickly, depending on what the illness is.
Yeah, like if you have the flu or something you're talking about.
Yeah, so like those sick days are pretty limited, like what Mariam said. And a lot of times when people aren't feeling mentally well, they'll just use up those sick days. Mm-hmm. But then again, same thing goes with physical health. Let's say you have some sort of illness that requires you to go to the hospital for weeks to months at a time, depending on what you have. Then it's like that's usually an issue for employers as well. Mm-hmm. So I think it's more so a time issue because people want, like, you need to get things done and you can only do that if you're physically there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important. I think mental health breaks are necessary sometimes. My only concern is that I don't know where you draw the line for that. And I know you have to be more trusting, but I feel like that's a little more ideal than realistically speaking. Like Inara said, I think I can agree with based on that, maybe that employees' productivity and maybe how they are on a daily basis, like, how serious and how driven they are versus when they call to say they mentally can't just be there. But I think it's hard to just ask employers to just give trust to their employees. Like, I definitely think that's a conversation we need to keep having, but I still think we're a ways from actually understanding the importance of mental health or how debilitating it can be. Because personally, for someone that hasn't really studied mental health too much, I can kind of understand bits and pieces from what I hear on the news or what I see on social media or like personal experiences I have with people. But for me, I don't know how serious it is if you're not on medication. Like, I automatically assume if your mental health state is really bad or really debilitating, you'd be on some kind of medication. I don't know how like severe of a mental health condition you can have and not be medicated. That's just like my personal lack of understanding.
No, I understand what you're saying, Malak. Not just that. Let's say some person does have severe anxiety where it requires them to stay at home every now and again. I mean, it can also encourage other employees that don't have that degree of illness to be like, oh, well, she took off for that day or he took off for that day. Can't I?
Well, maybe it doesn't even have to be looked at like that. It could just be, okay, the company you have 10 days off for sickness. Whatever the sickness is, if you say you're sick, you don't have to explain to me how. Just you have those 10 days and that's it. And then once you go over that, it's like, okay, you've been absent from work too long. That's another discussion. But why do we have to deep dive into, I mean, like Inato was saying before, when you call and you say, oh, I can't come in, I have a fever, no one's going to come and ask you what was your temperature.
I mean, most people say, I'm just not feeling well. And we're going to the reason that that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, but that is what is usually done nowadays.
Yeah, and I think as a worker, if you cannot go in because of some mental things that you are experiencing at the time, calling in and saying you don't feel well, you shouldn't feel like a failure for doing that or feel bad for doing that. Because a lot of people do, because we have this such like work ethic, I feel like in the United States at least, where work is your top priority. You should be at work, not 24/7, but when you need to be there. And people actually randomly like want to get praised for never taking a day off or not taking their paid time off or not taking their whatever it is. And they're like, oh, and I even did overtime. Like, that's not something to flex about. Relax.
No, I mean, everybody's different. That can also be an achievement. Like, you never felt the need to have to take a break. But I agree with you, Madam. I don't think which I would say these days, I don't think people look down upon others that take mental break. Like, I think the course of action our society has taken has become very much like you be the best version of you be safe, you worry about yourself. Yeah,
not in the law field.
Not in medicine either.
No, but mental health, what? You better show up to work. I don't understand. The judge isn't pausing, so neither are you.
No, but I feel like that's because in some of your instances, you're still dealing with people from older generation. But I feel like the younger generation, like the people that are up and coming in the working class, like they understand that. Like in a few years, this generation will be the bosses. And I don't feel like it'll be so foreign when they hear people taking mental breaks or like time to themselves because they need to recollect. This is still, we're phasing out older generation, newer generations. We're trying to find a compromise. But I think in a few years, it'll be even more different than it is now, honestly.
I think it all depends on like the environment that everyone has. So like if you have a cutthroat, malignant environment, then you're going to have people, even if they're physically ill, mentally ill, it doesn't matter. They're going to try to show up because that's what it has. So like in medicine, that's how I feel like it is. I remember pre-COVID, even if I was sick, like headache or like muscle aches, I had a little cold, I would still want to show up to work. And that was normal because I didn't want anyone else to have to cover my shifts. And then post-COVID, it's like, if you're sick at all, you better stay away, which but like same thing. Like you have
Hoyla, you never called in a day because you have your mental health?
No, I haven't. And I can't imagine because someone else, it's also different because someone else would have to take my shift for that. So
when you have to swap.
Yeah, so it's different maybe in a sense where even with an office, like if no one else takes your shift or like has to pick up your slack, that's a little different. But you still can have like pretty malignant offices where it's like, oh, you didn't show up and you have pretty harsh expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So is that why the rate of burnout or like suicide rates are high for doctors?
I definitely agree.
Or is it because of what they
No, it probably is. They don't get a chance to like breathe or to take a time out or.
No, I mean, it is shifting in a sense where it's more shift work or people are more understandable. There's a whole bunch of talks on like burnout and mental health in the medical field, but we're a long ways to go.
I find it so funny because whether you're in like residency or you're starting an intense program, they always talk to you about like burnout and about how exhausting it can be, but like the curriculum is the same. The work is the same. Like I understand that they're trying to give you different resources to like help, but the truth of the matter is you have to be able to keep up with all this stuff or you will not be successful.
Yeah.
So it's just them kind of like, I feel like it's them just trying to cover their backs in case anything happened. They can say we provided them with an outlet, and so
They just
be it.
want you to be aware that you're gonna burn out, but it's okay because you're not the only one.
There will be burns.
You will
but
be
you gotta
crying
get
every
up.
day.
Yeah.
Do you guys think nowadays we're not as able to endure a lot because of this movement on like you and your mental health? Like, do you think now we're easy to not really build our skills to resist or become more like resilient and fighting? Or are we like, Hollis can't do it, so we kind of give up a lot easier?
I don't think so.
I think half of it is positive, where we're becoming more aware of this stuff. But I think the positivity only comes when it's concerning people that actually are affected by mental health. And then I think the other half is debilitating to us because it does allow a lot of other people to have a scapegoat, to just say, oh, I'm not feeling well, or, oh, I don't think I can do this, or I don't have the mental capacity, when in reality, they themselves don't want to push themselves. So it's definitely it's a stride in the right direction for those that are actually affected by it that we used to ignore, but it's also probably not helping to provide an excuse for others. Because I do feel like sometimes we're a little bit babies, a little more spoiled about things than maybe we would have been if it wasn't as talked about.
I think personally, I think it depends on the person's personality.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're a hardworking, gritty person, then they'll continue to work through it and try to overcome whatever they can. As opposed to if it's someone who's more laid back, doesn't care, isn't really like goal oriented, then maybe they'll be like, whatever, who cares? And they'll try to take the easy way around things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say two things here. The first is that ever since the dawn of time, if you take a day off, even for physical health, people will still say you're making excuses. People will still try to point that they're probably not really sick. They call off one too many. Just as long as you take a day off of work, people will still find reasons to blame you for not being there. That's one.
Since the dawn of time, I would say that's just our capitalistic society.
Okay, well, since the dawn of time, since we've been here, okay, you don't take a day off of work. Are you crazy? And people will be like, oh, blame you a little for taking that day off, whether it was real or not real, whether it was an excuse or not an excuse. People will still think it's an excuse. That's one. Two, I think prioritizing our mental health, maybe at work, or maybe just us realizing, okay, I am being burnt out. I do need to stop because this isn't being productive to me or anybody around me. And I feel like a lot of those people also went home to their families and didn't give the best personalities to their family either, because they are able to cope with everything. So maybe I like the fact that people are prioritizing their mental health. I don't see it as quitting. I don't see it as being a baby. I see it as knowing where your limit is and saying, I can't go past this. Like, you can force me to go past this. My body will keep going past this, but mentally I can't.
I think it's good that people are becoming more self-aware. My concern is most people actually have the potential to push through. A lot of people who have anxiety, once you expose them to the thing that they fear, they're surprised that they were capable of doing it because they thought they weren't able to. So like, wow, that's not as bad as I thought. It's because you have the potential to do it. So a lot of times, like in therapy, if somebody has like they're anxious over something and you slowly expose them to that, they're really proud of themselves because like, wow, I didn't know I had that ability. So sometimes we ourselves limit it. And so like if we actually be like, oh, I can't do this anymore, then you are limiting your abilities, and we are capable to push forward. Like the human being is able to build the skills to move forward. So if you just let yourself be and let your mental health overtake it, if it's like, especially if you're already going through like negative thoughts, you're just gonna keep going spiraling down. Like you need to resist, like you need to fight back your own thoughts to be like, I can do it. But you need to make sure it's balanced and seek maybe professional help to help somebody guide you, like a therapist, to make sure that you are not like, quitting, and you all like to help you build those skills that you probably didn't have, which is why you're going through this.
Yeah. So like people shouldn't necessarily just praise Simone Biles for wanting to opt out of competing, rather than seeing the full picture of her trying to work on pushing through those anxieties and continuously working to being the greatest athlete that there is.
No, I agree that she should have pulled out. I was proud of her.
No, I'm not saying that she should not have pulled out, but it's not like, oh, I quit and then that's it, end of story. It's like, no, I'm not gonna. She hasn't stopped, and I'm sure she's not gonna stop being a gymnast and competing. It's just that people like kind of see the story like, oh, she stopped right there and that was that.
Mm-hmm. Juela's saying look more into it and the reasoning as to why she felt she needed to pull out.
But also after the fact, like it wasn't she just quit the Olympics and that's it. Like she's done with gymnastics. No, she's continuously practicing still. I'm sure she will continue to compete depending on what she wants to do, but that's not the end of the story, basically.
Yeah. I agree with Inara's thought that a lot of times people, and this kind of goes to Malak's point earlier too, is where we look at normal nerves or a normal level of anxiety as being too much when we could deal with those things. And that I think we should pull through and we should push through. And there's even a quote that says, you won't be motivated until you start doing something and then the motivation will come. So you should push through regardless of that. But I think we all have a point where, and I think we even put ourselves at that point where we say, if I just add one more thing to my plate, just one more. If someone sends me a text and I just have to reply to that text, that's going to break me and I am going to cry. And I think nobody should put themselves at that point. And I think all of us we do. And we're expected to.
I agree, Mariam. Everybody does have their breaking point and a point where they feel like they just can't continue after that. But with that being said, I feel like life is hard. Like, not to say that I'm not talking about like people that have like anxieties and depression and need help and need medication, not by any means. That's definitely something you should reach out to, get resources like Inara had said and figure out help. But just generally speaking, just for everyone that does feel like there's too much going on or they have too many pressures, or like you said, they just feel like they're at their ends, like their wits' end, you should also be able to take a step back and kind of prioritize and look at what's important and what's not important. Like it's a lot of times, it's a lot for anybody to go through everything they have to do. So people that are in graduate school and they're working and they may have a family and they're doing this and they're doing that. Yeah, it's tough. But don't feel like just because it feels like it's a lot, there's something wrong with you, or that suddenly you have a mental health like illness, or you need to seek therapeutic help. Like I also don't want us to feel like every little thing is something really big, like we were saying earlier. Because everybody in reality has a ton on their plate for the most part. We're all trying to juggle a lot of things to be successful in every avenue of our lives. And it is a lot and it does become a lot. But we just also, we have to be a little more resilient when we can. You definitely have to be aware.
The threshold for what sets us off balance has lowered.
No,
sometimes.
Is what you're saying.
Sometimes I do.
I don't think it is also the threshold, but not just that. I think our outlook on life has changed. Mm-hmm. We're going through life as if we're not supposed to be going through problems, or like it's supposed to be an easy life. Why am I struggling? Whether it's my job or family or friends, like there's gonna be struggles. I think the expectations that people go through life without struggle is the issue.
No, but I do think there's a middle ground here. I do think people also are waking up and realizing that why am I struggling when I don't have to? Like, for instance, a lot of people are saying a lot of people are proud that they didn't take a single day off of work in 10 years. But in reality, you have the days to take off. You have that time to take off. Why are you putting your own pressure on yourself? Or why am I putting myself through something or an ordeal that's making me miserable when I can take a step back and I don't have to be putting myself in that too?
Yeah, I agree.
So I think there's like two sides to that story.
Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, like maybe we identify ourselves too much with our jobs. Like why is the job making you so miserable? Like just do your part, get the money. That's what a job is for you.
Okay,
to money.
No,
but
see, here's where we disagree, Khwaila. A job isn't just where you go.
Like, I don't think, okay, if you have an opportunity to do something that you like as a job, sure. But like, let's say you don't have that opportunity. That shouldn't make you miserable to the point where it's causing all of these issues.
But you're spending so much time at work, Khwaila.
That's a different topic. My thing
No, it's the same thing. If it's causing, that's why it causes so much issue, because you're spending the majority of your day there, the majority of your week and year in life there. It shouldn't make you miserable to that extent.
Again, if you changed your outlook though, again, if you have the opportunity to get a job, that your dream job, or you don't feel like you're working, sure. If you don't have that opportunity, then make the best out of it and just look at it like, I'm just doing this to get money. Let me earn money so I can do X, Y, Z, provide for my family, buy food, buy clothes, and then just it is what it is.
But sometimes it's not every anxiety is from job. Like people also feel it from school. They feel it from families. Like it can be from any avenue. I just feel like it's important to recognize when you actually can't continue on. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just so easy for us to feel like there's a lot going on and just think, oh my God, I have severe anxiety. Oh my God, I need to see a doctor. Oh my God. Like some people really do suffer from that. And those people should definitely seek help.
But it's a lot less than what the general population is.
Exactly. I feel like it's not as much as people think it is. Like I feel like 50% at least of people that think they actually suffer from something very seriously don't. Honestly, that's just based on... I was going to go higher.
Based on opinion, because you can't physically see it. So maybe you should trust people more. I just want to give a random tidbit about what Quayla said about a dream job and you never feel like you're working. I just want you all to know, even if it is your dream job, there are days where you're just going to feel like you're working, okay? You will never feel 100% motivated to do work, even if it's a job you love. So don't let you quit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That is all. For that. On that note.
But Malak, everything is a spectrum, especially health related. Some people have it severe, some people don't have it so severe, and some people are somewhere in the middle. I agree. I just think in society right now, because we're transitioning from like what it was before to what we're trying to make it now, we're focusing too much on the illness itself and not what to do to like. No one brags about having heart failure. No one brags about like, oh my God, I have diabetes. Like, no one does that. So why are we like, I have anxiety, I have bipolar, I have depression? Why are we bragging about that? We should be bragging about what we're doing, how we're able to push through and succeed despite that illness.
Quayla, I think you need to change your outlook on that. It's not bragging. It's bringing light an issue that has been stigmatized in the past. And therefore you speaking about it makes other people be able to identify their own issues.
I feel like at this point, though, it's like everyone is coming out and saying, I have this, like literally, especially celebrities. Every single celebrity, I have anxiety, I have bipolar, I have depression.
If I had the whole world looking at me 24/7, I'd have anxiety too.
Well,
saying.
Okay,
that comes with the job.
Honestly, being a celebrity is so unnatural, and that is why I'm sure Simone Biles did what she did. Because when you have the whole world on you, you start making unnatural like decisions and like just bad decisions.
It's a very subjective discussion. I think mental health will always be one of those discussions that you can't really have to it. Like there's no end to it because everybody's so different and every experience is so different. Mm-hmm. And again, you can't quantify it. So I don't feel like we'll continue to have this discussion. We'll continue to try to go over these stories and these, like every individual that experiences something, and it'll just come out to the same result. Like that person is really the only person that can understand just how far they can go or how much they can handle before they need to take a break so that they themselves aren't like broken or they're not putting themselves in severe danger. So I just feel like her story is just another one of them. And it's just it was blown up because she's obviously such a viable piece to Team USA in the Olympics. And that's why the spotlight was on her.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think just for the general population, how we were talking about how a lot of people are complaining about, or they're mentioning, oh yeah, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm this. I think we need to start fine, you want to complain and say that, and it's probably true. We need to come to the point where we start to solve it too. Like you acknowledge, yes, I have depression. Yes, I have anxiety, but what am I going to do about it? What can I do to make sure that I overcome this? So do I need to sit down and write, what are my thoughts? How come I'm anxious? What do I need to do to make sure that I lower my anxiety? Am I overthinking things? So I think we need to start working on our skills to solve these issues rather than let them take us or just complaining about it. So like, I think we need to begin to really try to build those skills and take action. It's good that you're acknowledging and you recognize that about yourself, but now let's take action so we could overcome it and we could have a stronger society.
So that was a great way to wrap up the conversation. If you are someone that does have debilitating mental illnesses, please do find resources that help you. There are always people you can talk to, visit a doctor, a therapist. There are definitely hotlines for people that are suffering from those things that you can definitely contact and just speak through some of the situations that you're in. For those that just feel like their world is crashing down and the pressure is a lot, take a deep breath. Take it one day at a time, because everyone has different anxieties. Everyone has different pressures, and it's just the way life is. We're not some Instagram story, life is real and it's difficult and we just have to get through it. But thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode of To Whom It May Concern. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. And if you don't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you know every time we drop a new episode. Find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The Modern Skeps. And if you have any conversations you'd like us to have, please feel free to email us at themodernskeps@gmail.com. Sincerely, The Modern Skeptics. P.S. It's okay not to be okay.